All right, couch coaches, we are back. Another overreaction Monday. I got my guy Jeff in the building. What's going on, Jeff?
Man, I'm having a great time, man. I'm ready. I'm ready to overreact about it. It was a fun weekend. I'm ready to overreact about everything. Just say some nonsense. Got some nonsense to say.
Absolutely. That's what we're here for, where cold, hot takes are welcome. And man, so now what's funny, we actually have some breaking news to
Yes.
start off this week's Overreaction Monday, where Bill O'Brien was let go after a slow 0-4 start for the Houston Texans. The former coach slash GM of the Houston Texans is gone. So your thoughts on Bill O'Brien fired this afternoon?
Well, first of all, it needed done. Like I'm a High State fan, so I watched when he came to Penn State and was the miracle worker or whatever. I can remember then being like, I watched what he did, and I'm like, no, this guy. And he did walk into a tough situation because that was right after the Paterno incidents and all that. And I understand, but I never saw what anybody saw, and it was a classic case of like, Patriots, assistant coach, blah 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 blah. He had a decent quarterback. The quarterback looked pretty good, which that's fine. I mean, he did okay. We'll put it this way. One thing he did, Deshaun Watson did make a lot of money being there. Like there is something to be said about that. Like as far as him being a quarterback guru. But what's funny about your show tonight is they went from my losers to my winners real quick because when I heard he got fired, I had to move Deshaun Watson up from losers to winners because I was like, at least he got rid of Bill O'Brien. Because I was ready to bury the Houston Texans. I was like, no, this is the longer they string this out, like they're wasting, Watson's career. Things are going nowhere. They're running, he's another kind of reminds me of like how many times did they do this with like Norv Turner and Chan Gailey and all these guys? Like, nah, just keep plugging them in. Like, so I was glad to see it. That's one of the worst. It's just one of the worst. It's literally one of the worst coach teams. Then the whole, the Hopkins trade, like who okays that? Yeah, it was past due. It was past due.
Yeah, and I look at just the Bill O'Brien situation, and it was about time. I think when you're 0-4, you're at a point now where and this team, even though on the scale they had playoff aspirations. I mean, they somewhat have a playoff caliber type of roster.
They were expecting to win that division.
Right. So then you're looking at now facing the 0-4, they essentially had no choice. I mean, especially now when you're heading to October where, you're looking at the success of the Colts at 3-1. Tennessee is still undefeated. They're obviously off this week, but going forward. So though, you look at now and then even Jacksonville. You're behind Jacksonville. You're last place in that division. So now you have such an uphill climb in this situation where now it was like do or die for this team. So it was almost like it were forced. And like I said, it's the best move because now going forward, it's a brand new slate because now and I hope to God that the Texans actually get a general manager. I don't know for some odd reason this belief of not having a general manager, which I know Bill O'Brien had that duty, but them having, because they really haven't had a general manager in years.
No, and there was no reason to give him that duty. I never understood that. Like, what did he ever do in his career to earn general manager? Like, that never made sense to me at all. They just wanted to save money, right? Like, we don't want to pay a general manager. But, when you watch that team on the field, man, like, I felt bad for Deshaun. Like, he's a talented guy, and it never seemed like there was a plan. It like just their receive. Like I can understand what Hopkins wanted out of there. Like there's never a design for like a route tree. Like the receivers, like I don't know. It's like playing Madden against somebody and they pick the same two plays. It just there was like you see some of these coaches now. Like you see San Francisco, what they do with their offense. You see the Ravens, what they do with their offense. You watch the Rams. Like they got all these guys in motion. They got fullbacks, doubling up on tight ends and all this stuff. Houston did none of that. Like they were playing a 1995 Dallas Cowboys offense, in 25 years too late, man. Like it was time. It was time. I bet Deshaun's the happiest quarterback in the league because he got $40 million and he's going to get Picky's coach. He might get Lincoln Riley. What do you think?
Who's to say? I
Let's
know.
overreact on this. Who's
Yeah.
next coach? It's not Romeo. I love Romeo, but he's a defensive coordinator.
Hey, it's gonna be. Matter of fact, let's put it out there. Since of course, we have a situation now where we have the Chiefs and the Patriots playing.
Okay.
A former University of Colorado superstar by the name of Eric Bieniemy, an offensive guru, who I think would be great in Houston. I think
he's going to be great anywhere.
He'd be great anywhere, but I think having a guy like a Deshaun Watson,
perfect.
I look at that where I'm like, I think once the Chiefs season's over, I'm gonna, or even during their playoff run, I'm gonna try to sneak an interview with Eric Bieniemy.
Why not?
If I'm the Houston Texans, whoever their GM or whoever their decision maker is, he's my first choice. Like and then like you said, I like Lincoln Riley, which the way they kind of set up, the way they're playing this year. I know this sounds crazy. This is OverReaction Monday, but I don't know if they lose it Saturday. They lose to Texas.
Right.
Lincoln Riley.
He's on the market.
Right.
So
he might need to get off the Titanic before it's sank.
Here's what I think is going to happen with Bieniemy, and I said this. I think I started thinking this last summer. My prediction is on OverReaction Monday, Chiefs are going to win the Super Bowl. Andy Reid's going to retire. Eric Bieniemy steps up. It's a smooth transition. It doesn't violate the Rooney Rule or anything. A lot of teams can't just, their assistant can't just, step in. You're not allowed to do that. But with Bieniemy, it'll work. And why wouldn't he want to coach Mahomes? And so, like, if you're the Chiefs, you tell Andy Reid, like, sorry, big guy, this is your last. You're not going to keep Andy Reid, an aging Andy Reid, over losing Eric Bieniemy if Patrick Mahomes wants Eric Bieniemy is what I'm thinking. So I think Bieniemy goes to the Chiefs, Lincoln Riley to the Texans.
Yeah, and sit down and think about it. It could be a possibility where they let Andy Reid, he resigns or what have you, and just transfer of power.
That's what I think, and I think that's what. And I have no problem with that because Bieniemy's put in his time, and he's helped make Patrick. Sorry, we found out last week his mama does not want you calling him Pat. Did you catch that last week on Monday night?
Yes,
I didn't know.
She said, "Don't call my boy Pat."
His dad's name. And as me and my dad had the same name, so I totally got it. So Patrick, he's helped make Patrick, one of the best players we've ever seen in the history of football. I would hate to see him have to walk away from that. You know what I mean? Like just because to get his shot. But I'm always indifferent on that too. I've never I don't know why we always assume that a great coordinator wants to be a head coach. Like there's nothing wrong with being like a great coordinator for your entire career, like Dick LeBeau or one of those guys. Like, sometimes that's what you're really good at. We don't know. I mean, I think Bieniemy wants to be head coach and he should be a head coach, but we don't know that he doesn't want to be the best offensive coordinator of all time because they always say once you go to head coach, whatever your specialty is what you sacrifice because now it takes away, you know what I mean? Like he steps up to head coach. He's like, man, I'm sorry, Patrick, I ain't got time because I just had a rookie, test positive for, marijuana in the portalet. So now we can't go over, what we were installing this week. And if you look at what the Chiefs do every week, I don't know if you got to watch that whole game last Monday, but they had a whole game plan that nobody had ever seen before. Like just to beat the Ravens, just to prove that's all Bieniemy. That's all offensive coordinator. Yep. So I think the Chiefs need to do whatever they can do to hold on to that guy.
Yeah, and like you said, going back to where as far as being an offensive being a coordinator and making that transition, Bill O'Brien was one of those guys. He was,
yeah, exactly.
He was part of that. he was offensive coordinator with he's always the quarterback's coach. I forgot what he was in New England.
It was a brief period. Like that was a weird thing, man. And Penn State was like kind of, I won't say desperate, but like they needed a hire, and that all worked out. I still don't
work out.
Yeah, you can, like, I guarantee you go back in time and see Jeff watching, Bill O'Brien coach at Penn State, and when Houston hired him, I'm like, why would you do that? Like, you know, I mean, if I'm going to hire somebody out of college, I'm hiring one of these gurus, you know what I mean? These guys throwing the ball all over the field, doing something crazy. You know what I mean? Like, give me Cliff Kingsbury if I'm going to hire a college coach. Like, I'm going to go for it. I want to hire a college coach that runs a pro offense. Like, there's all kinds of pro offensive coordinators. So I think this is big news for Deshaun, and I think the Texans they're not out of it yet. They got the talent to go on a run.
And 0-4, they have an uphill climb, but Houston they've been 0-2 before. They've been somewhat in this predicament before. Yep. So it could be a situation where they could overcome it, and they're gonna have to turn around real quick.
Oh no, yeah,
very quick.
They need a 3 out of 4 at least. But I mean, just what we're seeing, man. Like, there's going to be games canceled, there's going to be games change. It's a bit of a unique season. Like, they're not dead yet, but they're on life support for sure. But
big time, yeah. So, week 4, who was your biggest winners in week 4?
Okay. So I got a couple of them here. So I got one, and I got a soft spot for this man. I love Teddy ball game, the Carolina Panthers, and not just because they won, but I actually I was able to watch a lot of that game, and they look like a real team. Like, they look like they're kind of getting it together. It looked like Teddy's team, and they're playing a team in Arizona who 2 weeks into the season, we were talking about how hot they were and everything, and they shut him down. Teddy looked good. He didn't play out of his range. You know what I mean? Like, when Teddy can stay inside his own head, like, he's a really good quarterback. And I don't know, they looked really good, and I was happy for him. So I thought they came away from that feeling good. And then Justin Herbert. We talked about this a little bit. Justin,
can we say it in unison?
Yeah, let's go.
Justin, we're sorry. We're sorry.
That's my bad, man. I said going into the draft last year, man, the last probably 8 weeks of the season, I'm like, no, and I said it time and time again, like, I love the kid. He seems like a great kid. My co-host at the time would be like, you keep saying that. And I'm like, no, he does. He seems like a great kid. Like, I'm not saying I would, like, but I didn't see it. And he has done nothing but play. He played well enough to win Sunday. If they don't fumble that ball right before going into the half, they win that game. That was a huge turnover. The kid looks good. He looks like it's not too big for him. His arm talent, his physical ability is off the charts. But he's not just out there like making crazy plays, and he's playing within the offense. He's hitting different receivers. Like, I was totally wrong about the guy. He looks like the franchise quarterback. That's my bad, Justin. That's my bad, buddy. Like, I've been known to be wrong from time to time. And I was wrong. But so Justin Herbert, I think that if you're a San Diego fan and if you're a Justin Herbert, like, you feel good actually about Sunday. He went toe-to-toe with the GOAT. Could have easily won that game. They've got a nice roster. They've got a pretty nice defense. They've got talent on offense. That team could be good quick. A couple years, that team could be really good. We talked about Deshaun. I switched him to my winners at the last second. But to me, my biggest winner that I saw, I don't think anybody can argue with, Cleveland Browns. And that just, you can't downplay what they did. I don't care what I saw Dallas, Dallas was within a play of beating Seattle, last week or 2 weeks ago? Last week. They're within a throw of beating Seattle, who I consider the second best team in the NFL. And Cleveland went there and ran on them. Like 300 yards rushing, coach. 300 yards rushing. And what I like best, and I've been saying this for a couple years, just because I know so many Cleveland fans. I don't happen to be one, despite the Block O behind me. But Baker Mayfield threw for less than 200 yards. and they thumped Cleveland. And I was like, that's the secret. That's his game. He's not a 500. He's not Dak Prescott. You know, he played within his game, but that offensive line for the Cleveland Browns, their scheme, Stepanski? Yeah, he's doing a great job up there. So to me, the one that stood out, and I can't deny, man, is the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah,
they got to feel good about themselves.
Yeah. And you know, also to piggyback on your point too, I think I have a couple winners, but obviously going back to the Cleveland, Cleveland is finally playing to their potential.
Yeah.
And I've always said Cleveland is a good team, but they always let you down. You got to think about it. This team, like you said, 307 yards rushing. That's their calling card.
And everyone, and by the way, every one of them mattered. That's huge. Like, we're going to talk a minute about Dak, but just to reiterate, like, those 300 mattered. That last yard that got OBJ in the end zone sealed that game. Like, those rushing yards mattered. They weren't junk. You know, it wasn't a junk touchdown at the end of the game. Like, every one of them mattered. That was just a smash mouth. It was impressive.
Yeah, and and that's one thing too with Cleveland. And I remember when we played them last week, that was my biggest fear was, okay, how can we stop the run? And you know, not to kind of make it a WFT segment. Yeah, I know, but I'm just saying I don't want to lament on the loss. But that's another situation where, you know, I looked at that was going to be the issue going in hand, but you know, besides the 5 turnovers, I've really had solace in the fact that we only held them to like a little over 100 yards rushing, which I was like, that's great when you have I think we may have talked about this before on a previous episode where they have those 2 guys can rush for 1,000 yards in one season together. Like,
I think so.
Each of them.
Yeah.
So I look at that, and then, you know, of course, you feel bad for Nick Chubb, you know, as far as with this injury.
Absolutely, yeah.
But Cleveland is finally playing to their potential, and that's the thing where, you know, they're finally playing to who we thought they were going to be. Because the team is talented. I mean, there's no question that this team has talent. Then coupled, like we said, we talked about the offensive line. Now, you know, we talked about bringing in Jack Conklin. And then Dedrick Wills is there. No, is Dedrick Wills? Yeah, no, Tristan Wirfs.
Wirfs.
Yeah, Tristan. Yeah, Wirfs. Yeah, Tristan. Yeah. So you bring that coupled with that, and like you said, Baker doesn't have to be the Oklahoma Baker where he's going to be, you know, throwing 500 yards a game or whatever.
And he shouldn't be. And he may be in 6 years, but he's got.
Right.
Yeah, he's got to take it. We talked about this when we did our NFL pregame, man. You talked about Baker, and this is the Baker that you wanted to see. But it looks like it doesn't bother him, which is a good sign for. I mean, it's one of those things too. And you're going into the Big D, you're going into Jerry's house in front of him, and you know that is special. Regardless of this, is an 8-8 franchise. We know the Cowboys an 8-8 franchise for the last 20-some years. But it's a big deal. Like, if you're a Cleveland fan, you have every right to be happy. You have every right to be that when offensive line plays good, that's a huge sign. That's a huge sign. That you can repeat that week to week. Just like you talked about defensive line play in the past with you guys. You know what I mean? That's something that can be repeated, and you can build on that. So they got every right. I mean, they're a scary team.
And what's scary, like I always say, one of my biggest buzzwords is they got a game that travels.
Yes,
that they can play in the terrain. And you look at, especially now when we're heading towards, you know, the nitty gritty of the season, even though October ain't really quite yet, but November, December roll around, and you have these type of performances where you could do these type of things. And then even going back to our game last week where they think even last week even yesterday they had 3 turnovers against Dallas, and then, you know, last week they had 5 turnovers against us. And you know, if you do these things, if you know, a couple times coupled with this running game, like Cleveland can be a scary team. Where, you know, if they've done what they've done the last 2 weeks, and even both of those 2 wins are kind of somewhat of a differencing of type of wins, because when you think about it, because he was beating Dallas 41-14 in the third quarter.
They beat him. I think to be fair, like, to throw a little bit of ice on the fire. Like Cleveland's defense did give up some yards. Like I know, everybody's like a lot of them yards didn't count. Blah blah blah. I'm like, well, they count. If OBJ gets tackled in the backfield on that last play, that we're talking about a different game right now.
Yeah.
So, I don't think Cleveland's they're not all the way there, but so there's a, you know what I mean? Like I looked at the yardage totals, I'm like, they gave up just as many as Dallas did, but Dallas that's a different conversation.
Yeah, and it's funny because you're right, because Cleveland was getting ready to become like the Falcons. That play essentially because it was 41-38 up until that point.
Yeah.
And like that.
Let's face it. They make that tackle. Dallas wins that game. Like, I really believe
big
that.
Big time.
They didn't. Full credit to they didn't. That was a terrible play call that worked out great. But you know what? Maybe it's not a terrible play call because if you watch Dallas's effort on the defensive side of the ball, Stefanski was probably like, nah, this will work. Like, you know what? Like, our guys want it. They want to block a little more than their guys do. And that was one of the poorest coached like defenses. I don't know what they all ran. You don't run to the sideline at the end of a game, regardless, even no matter what, the guy's going to cut back upfield to keep the clock running. Like you never push things to the sideline in the end of the fourth quarter of a game when like just there's so many things, so many fundamental things that broke down for Dallas at the end of that game.
Yeah. And one more winner I got surprisingly the Philadelphia Eagles. I think
you know what? They were on my list, and I didn't follow through with it.
But it's the most bizarrest win
I've never seen
in 2020, where you look at just the fact and Philly. I think Philly really has to be encouraged because if you look at this from if you're looking at it from just the whole totality as far as stat wise, they should have lost this game. I mean, they got out. Like they total offense, I think altogether, I think they had 267 total yards compared to San Francisco 417 yards.
Well, was it Mullins throws that interception?
He throws that interception.
That was a backbreaker right there. Like and San Francisco is a team that's based on they have limited number of possessions. You can't that's got to be 3 points. Like that's got to be 3 points minimum.
Yeah. So. And then the 3 turnovers that San Francisco committed, and this Eagles team, believe it or not, they leave the NFC East at 1-2-1.
I can't, dude. Like I have all the stats today, but I'm like, I've never seen anything like this.
It's bizarre.
I looked it up. I tweeted it out last night. The combined teams in the NFC East wouldn't lead any other division.
No, it wouldn't.
3 wins.
3 wins.
It's incredible, but that happens. I remember like when Seattle made it at 7-9, that division was horrible. San Francisco, that was when they were down. The Rams were down. So this happens, and Seattle won a game. They beat the Saints at home because these teams. So here's what you know about the NFC East. They're playing for a home playoff game, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like that's how it works. Like the system is set up. Like I don't want to hear anybody, bitching and moaning about it. The system is set up. Whoever wins that division gets a home playoff game.
Right.
Too bad.
Too bad.
Yeah. It's going to happen.
It's going to happen.
What was the year with RG3 in Dallas? It came down to the last game. Were they 8-8 that year? Was the winner? Was it 9-7?
9. The winner ended up being 9-7 or 10-6.
Yeah, something. I mean, they went. So like
yeah. And I remember we won in 2015. I think we were 9-7 because I remember because I think we ended up being 9-7 that year and made it.
You guys probably beat Dallas the last game to make it.
Yeah, but hey,
I think that was like Dallas lost theirs and you won. Yeah, I remember that, but it's going to come down to that again.
It's going to come down to that again. And hey,
they might be 6-10. I don't know, man.
But I'm here for it. Somebody gonna win this division.
Yeah, you know what? There you go.
Somebody gonna have to win it, and if not, then hey.
Hey,
Man, somebody, yes.
Carson got to have a little fun. They got a win's a win in the NFL.
Yeah,
like, there's no bad wins in the NFL.
And that's one thing too, where you look at it and they're playing their worst football, and they're injured, like severely injured. Which Philly's always kind of been, they've always been mirrored with injuries.
Always.
So you look at now, you got a West Coast win, primetime win. It could catapult them going forward. I mean,
let's not overlook they beat the 49ers.
No,
I mean,
right.
I understand, Garoppolo's not in there, but that's still the 49ers. Like,
right.
They got some athletes. I mean, that kid dribbling in the end zones.
Yeah. Shoot. They're
back. Like
still
a win.
They're little brothers from the north. The Jets and the Giants lost to them by double digits. So hey, you take it.
Yep, absolutely. In the NFL, it's all about wins. There's no vote. No voting.
Right. Because they did something that the Jets and the Giants couldn't do. Right. Right. They couldn't even beat a Nick Mullins San Francisco 49ers team.
Nick, by the way, I watch a lot of college football. I don't have any idea who Nick Mullins is. Name does not ring a bell. Like, I have no clue who this dude is, man.
I want to say Nick Mullins played for he played for Mississippi State or Ole Miss. He played for I think. I want to look it up real quick.
He looks like he played for Penn State. He looks like one of them dudes that would come in as a backup and beat Ohio State from Penn State.
Oh yeah, he went to Southern Miss.
Oh, okay, of course.
Yes, Nick Mullins, the pride of Hoover, Alabama.
Man,
but that's the thing where that's another thing that's interesting. Also, those are my two winners, the Eagles, and then going back to speaking about your point with the Browns, I definitely was impressed with the Browns did in that week. So, week 4. Who's the biggest losers in week 4?
Okay, we touched on it. We won't beat this into the ground. I just had the whole NFC East. Like, and they're winners and losers, but I'm like, if you're the NFC East, you got to be like, man, what is going on? Like, Giants are in a horrible spot. Dallas, because I want to say Dallas, but I'm not going to do another podcast about talking about Dallas Cowboys, jumping them all in there together. Even though I agree with the Eagles being the biggest winner, you still got to look and be like, okay, we're in trouble. Because it's like we just talked about, it's not fake. Like, these aren't great teams. You know what I mean? Like, no. I don't think any of these 4 teams, could beat, the Seahawks or even the Rams, or like they're way down there, even though somebody's going to win it. So I just kind of put them in there. Another one I had just across the board, top college quarterbacks. Because the worst teams in the NFL right now are not teams you want to go to. You don't want to go to Jacksonville right now. No direction. The Jets have the worst situation in football. If you're Trevor Lawrence, I'm seriously like, I would not go. They don't like what's there. Like, the offensive line's in shambles. The coach is going to get fired. The defense doesn't look good. They don't have receivers. Like, they're in shambles. The Giants don't look great. They're down there. So like, just top college quarterbacks got to be like, are you kidding me? You know what I mean? Yeah. Herbert's getting picked up by San Diego last year. He's out on the beach right now throwing touchdowns to Tom Brady. Poor Trevor Lawrence going to be in the old Meadowlands, brains beat in. Like, so top college quarterbacks took a big loss yesterday. And then I had Deshaun Watson, but because being 0-4 and his season going down the drain, but at the last minute, Bob gets fired, and I moved him up. So, and real quick college note as far as biggest losers, the Big 12. I don't know what Big 12. You can't have Texas. You can't have Texas and Oklahoma lose on the same weekend when there's only 3 big conferences playing. So, big time losers, the Big 12. They're in trouble when the Big 10 comes back.
I think that's gonna give the Pac-12 an opportunity, even though they play November the 4th. Like, what the world?
Yeah, they're gonna play 2 games.
November the 7th. What was it? November the 7th? I'm like, what?
That's crazy. I don't. Yeah,
y'all,
no good out there.
Y'all gonna mess around, Oregon be 7-0 and make the college football playoff.
That's exactly. exactly what's going to happen.
Right. So my biggest loser is got to be the Texans. I think at 0-4, and then this is gonna be a nice little interesting tidbit for you, Jeff.
Okay.
So with them being 0-4 and their former general manager Bill O'Brien, I don't know. I don't know. You guys did a deal with him, getting Laramie Tunstall, Kenny Stills. Didn't you guys get a 2021 first and a second round draft pick from the Miami from them? Yeah, and they're 0-4. Could you imagine now if they could on this same trajectory? You could potentially get a guy like a Penei Sewell, one of the best offensive tackles in probably one of the best offensive tackle prospects in years,
or Jamar Chase.
Chase, right?
And that's if they start winning. We could still steal Jamar Chase or somebody like that. Yeah, that was big news. I actually didn't remember all that until honestly until Twitter said it, and I was like,
and I was like, it
reminds me when
that's why you need to get fired.
When did that happen in basketball a few years ago, Coach? I know you'll remember. You're a better guy. Somebody traded and they wound up getting.
Oh, matter of fact, Cleveland, because didn't Cleveland was it like a Baron Davis trade? Because he went to the Clippers, and then the Clippers ended up having the #1 pick and ended up being Kyrie Irving.
Yeah.
Because I remember because I think was it Baron Davis? It was like a Baron Davis trade, and for something, it was a situation where I think it was like like what they call it, I forgot, like a blockbuster trade, kind of like where it's like multiple teams, and I think Cleveland ended up getting like the Clippers' first round pick, and that first round pick ended up being Kyrie Irving.
Yeah, it was a conditional pick and all that. So no, that is pretty cool. And that's what I said. I was always on board with Miami and their plan. And the plan was just keep building picks and building picks and building picks. I mean, the picks got to pay off. You can't waste it. But so far so good. But once again, it just goes back to what was O'Brien doing? Like Kenny Stills was never like I just don't understand. Like no shade Kenny Stills, but there's a bunch of Kenny Stills.
And and that's what everybody kept on saying. Well, I don't know, why would they get rid of you mean to tell me you can get rid of Laramie Tunstall and you can get a Penei Sewell? Yeah. Potentially?
Nice trade. Yeah.
That's why Bill O'Brien is fired.
Yes, that's exactly why he's fired.
Exactly.
Man. They gotta go get one of these young whiz kids, man, to build these teams.
Right. Man. If there was a million ways to justify him getting fired, this should be the #1 reason. Because now you look at it, because even you having a bad season like this, you can't give it to Miami.
Yeah, you don't have your draft picks. Oh,
you could potentially have a Hall of Fame tackle in Penei Sewell or deep #1 threat in Jamar Chase to couple with a Tua Tagovailoa next season.
Yeah.
Thank you, Bill O'Brien.
Off of Kenny Stills.
Right. Off of Kenny Stills and Laramie Tunstall.
Well, that and like is pounce on Houston a little bit more. This is on a different section. Houston, when they were winners, we was happy. And losers, like you can't have a $40 million quarterback, and this is his receiving core, and this is his. You traded for David Johnson, the best fantasy running back in 2016 and shit. Like you can't. Like those are like, was they playing fantasy football? Like, no, man, he's great. Like, no, that sheet's from 4 years ago, man.
Right.
What? Like, sorry, David, but like, I don't know. We might talk about this for a second when we get to another category, but I don't know where you're at with running backs in the NFL.
Yeah.
But putting all this time and money into like these David Johnsons and stuff, it's just not like it's like. Yeah. There was 2 Cleveland Browns we never even heard of yesterday running for almost 100 yards.
Right.
I don't know, man.
And what's scary about that, like you said, we used to live in a world where we were like, is David Johnson worth the #1 pick in the fantasy football draft?
Oh, by far. They're the greatest fantasy football player ever.
Right. Wow.
What, no, who was the I shouldn't be, he got injured, but Adrian for Houston, he was the best fantasy running back.
Arian Foster. Arian Foster. Yes. Oh my goodness.
Speaking of which, Adrian Peterson. Peterson still scoring touchdowns. Like, he never won anything, but that dude, he's a baller. But yeah, Arian Foster, like, come on, man. Like, you just, I don't know. I don't know, man.
And I do too. Where I mean, it's crazy. So then my final loser,
the
Detroit Lions. I kid you not. If you play Detroit Lions and you have a double-digit lead, you're going to win the game. They did it again. It's so funny. It was right on time because I was watching my game, and then I see the Lions up 14-0. I was like, oh. Well, they had a 14-point lead against Chicago in the fourth quarter in the game in week 1. They had a 14-3 lead against Green Bay and relinquished that too. And the only win that they had was against Arizona, and thank God they didn't have a 14-point lead on them because they would have came back. So
I feel bad for Stafford,
right? And we play Detroit in a few more weeks, and I'm like, I hope we have I hope they have a 14-point lead on us.
Well, you guys are the best. 17 down. That's your wheelhouse.
Right. I was like, okay, if we have 14, if Detroit spot us 14 points, we gonna win that game. Like to me, if I'm not a betting guy, but if Detroit has a double-digit lead, you put all the chips on the opposing team. You put all your money.
You're the one that's end game bettors, man.
Yes, if you do it right, that's got to be. I want to know. I wonder, does that line really move? Like essentially, like when you have like when Detroit has like a double-digit lead, when it's like 7-3, and then like like Detroit is in the red zone, like. There's like I know everybody's like salivating, like they either gonna kick a field goal or like score, and then damn, it's 11-point lead. Like
and the thing is, man, when like the Detroit's the weirdest thing because Stafford is so good. I don't know where Stafford's going to go down all time because nobody's going to be able to make sense of it. He's going to be up there with almost all the records, and it looks like unless things turn around, it looks like he's going to not win anything. But when they're driving down the field and they look good, like you can almost tell, like they can be on. They take the kickoff and they have a couple good plays. You're like, oh, they're going to score a touchdown. Looks like the best team I've ever seen. And then the next time they get the ball, it's just debauchery. I can't figure it out because I watched them. I was watching them yesterday, and they got Swift, good looking player. Swift, good looking player out of Georgia. I wish he has that catch back from week 1.
Oh boy.
And he catches one, and they're moving him around, and Stafford looks great. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, nope, they lost. Like,
right.
It's always defense. Like they don't. Man, they've wasted so much. I can't figure it out, man. I really can't.
I feel for them. Yeah,
I do. The one game I wish I could give back to them is that year when they were up on the Cowboys in the playoffs. I think it was Romo's probably next to last year, and they had them. They freaking had them, and I would have loved to seen if they could have won that game, and Stafford and Johnson would have built some momentum. I've always just everybody that watches Thanksgiving Day games always has a soft spot for Detroit. I don't care who you are, like there's something about Detroit and Barry Sanders and all that, and man, they just can't get it together.
I know. That's
their coach.
So unfortunate.
Their coach isn't long for that team. So there's a team. Throw it out the window. Hire the craziest 25-year-old, or Mike Leach or somebody out of college, and just go for it, like they did with the run and shoot. The best years Detroit ever had in their franchise is when they had to run and shoot with Wayne Fontes. I mean, I'm just saying, like, that shit was crazy, but it was something.
And that's another Bill Belichick disciple.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, Matt Patricia. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, Patricia.
Yeah. He'll be next. We thought I thought he was gonna be the first little Bill out, but nah.
And it's only because Detroit just doesn't have any expectations. And if they don't have Matt Stafford, if they've got a another one of these journeyman quarterbacks. They got Ryan Fitzpatrick. They're terrible. Like they're not even in these games. Like it would be because they're not coached at all.
Like how they were last year. Because remember, Jeff Driscoll, the University of Florida, the former Gator great.
Gator great. Gators look nice this year. But,
yeah, man, they could be a problem.
Oh yeah. No, you're right, man. Sorry, Detroit, but
I know. Hey,
might not be your year yet.
Well, I'll put it this way: this don't have a 14-point lead.
Herman Moore ain't walking through that door.
Right, we gonna be like Rick Pitino.
Brett Perryman ain't walking through that door.
Dre Bly now walking through that door. UNC. Let me stop.
Dre Bly was a baller. I like that guy.
Right? Yeah, man. He doing his thing at UNC as well for that number 8 ranked University of North Carolina Tar Heels.
Oh yeah, we might get into that. We might get into that.
I know, right?
That's exciting,
right? Man, who you telling? It's really exciting.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
some of the best uniforms in college football too.
Yes, yes, indeed.
You can't. Nobody can hate on the Tar Heel blue. Sorry,
not at all.
Not even Chris LeBron. I don't care.
Nah. So, the best part of the show, week 4 overreactions. Your overreactions for this week, Jeff?
We had a few of them. We talked about a few of them earlier. Things went a little bit sideways. So my biggest one is I think the Browns. I know I don't have a Browns show, but they had a big week. I think the Browns have passed the Steelers as far as like their franchise is in a better place, and I would rank them ahead of the Steelers as far as their franchise right now. Ooh. They're younger. Their offensive line looks great. I think that they're in a situation where if Mayfield went down, I don't think that they necessarily go in a tank. Their defense is getting. It's not Steelers quality defense. But my overreaction, I think the Browns franchise has passed the Steelers right now as far as where they're at and their future. I think their next 5 years are better than the Steelers, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. Oh, and another one. This whole Zeke thing and giving him all the money in Dallas and the whole running back thing, it's not working. Zeke will not be a Dallas Cowboy next year. That experiment's done. It's going to be Dak's team. They're going to go with some rookie kid. Some team like the Houston Texans are going to give Zeke, like they're going to trade the franchise away for him. Yeah, that's my biggest. It's not fitting, man. It just don't look right. He doesn't look right. Nobody looks like they care. And he's making all that money. Like you can't have your quarterback. Quarterback can't be throwing 500 yards and you're paying your running back one of the highest paid players in the league. Like you got to give up one of the two. We saw Adrian Peterson go through this. Like you got to choose, and so that's my extreme overreaction. Zeke won't be here. It's time to blow things up.
Hey, nothing wrong with that. So the Jets and the Giants are the 2 worst teams in the National Football League
ever.
At least for 2020. The Jets, they lose another game. They lost to the Denver Broncos. They lost to America's favorite nephew and Brett Ripken. America's favorite nephew. Favorite nephew. Of course, he is Mark Ripken's nephew, Super Bowl 26 MVP of my beloved Washington football team. So definitely,
he had a great year. I would say he might possibly be the no offense, Mark, might be the ugliest quarterback I've ever seen. outside of every Michigan quarterback, he might be the ugliest. I like that guy. He had a hell of a year that year.
Yeah, he did. Yeah,
strong arm. Washington pumped out. They had Williams and Schrader, just a big strong arms. And what a run! Yeah, Ripken was 91, right?
Yeah, Ripken was 91. Yep.
Yeah. What a year.
America's
Thurman Thomas forget his helmet that year.
Yes. Yep. Missed the start.
Yeah.
Man. Yeah, and the Hubert Humphrey Dome that's no longer with us, and shout out to the Metrodome. But so they lose that game, and then the Giants come all the way out to the left coast and get mollywopped by well, even though it wasn't bad, but they lost to the Rams.
But they never had a chance of winning.
They have a chance to win that game.
I know they technically did, but they just that's another team. Like, there's just not enough going on the offense. There's not enough guys moving around. It's not not complicated blocking schemes. That's what the NFL is about now. If you want to have sustainable offense, you can't just say hut and have the guys run the same, like I said, the same Tecmo Bowl routes that they always run and hope that Danny Dimes is throwing it in. If you watch the really good teams, when the receivers catch the ball, they're not covered. They're open because that's how your scheme works. Like, you watch San Francisco, they don't have a great quarterback, but these guys catch the ball and they're wide open. Kittle, I know he gets some great catch, but I'm saying in general, like, they're wide open because of the design of the offense and the design of the route trees and the blocking schemes. If you watch the Giants and you watch these, like Jacksonville's a great example. Like, Minshew looked great. His receivers are always covered. He's got to thread the needle, and that's not sustainable. And the Jets are like I say, they have I don't know anything about their team that I would say that's a positive. Just absolutely one of the worst franchises in football.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know who their building blocks are. Like, there's another one. You give all that money to Le'Veon Bell. What?
Yeah.
Completely useless.
And I think if it was a difference between the two, I would lean more towards the Jets. I think I like what they're going to do going forward. I do, and like I always say, when I preface the Jets, I want to make sure that my bias isn't because Joe Douglas, general manager of the Jets, is actually from one of the areas, from my hometown. So I look at that, and so part of my bias when I kind of speak about Joe Douglas in a higher in a pedestal type of phraseology.
Why not?
But, right. So I think and I think he'll get his coach in and get what he has to do. And I think, the team, like you said, and they'll fix it. I think the Giants, when they get rid of Gettleman and, as far as they get a general manager and they have a plan in place, then I think it's going to happen. But if you look at it from a standpoint, I think I'm more encouraged because at least with the Jets, they have a general manager who's going to go forward, and I think he's going to have the keys. And I definitely like how he was able to get 2 first-round picks for Jamal Adams. So I look at that. That's another building block that I definitely didn't think he was going to be able to get 2 first-round picks. I thought he was a little overzealous or ambitious to think he could get that, but he got it. So
that's a good
kudos. So kudos to him. I knew in my personal opinion, I was like, it's going to be kind of tough to get a 2 first rounds for him, but he got it.
And we've talked about this. I mean, and you take those from a team and just look what's happening to Miami. Like, you might, I don't want to say get lucky, but like, the team you get the picks from, like, something goes wrong. The next thing you know, that's a good point.
Man, you better,
general managers are important too. Like, my wife's a big Ravens fan, so I watch a lot of Ravens games. And I'm telling you what Ozzie Newsome did with the Baltimore Ravens is that's a Hall of Fame. Like, it absolutely one of the. And so if there is something to that. So I'll take your word on it. I don't know much about the general managers of either team, but I know that, the Giants are just like, I don't know what. I just don't. There's no direction. I don't know. I don't know what they're up to. I can't name an offensive player on their team. They got a receiver that's all right, but the receivers are a dime a dozen right now. I mean, there's not in a bad way, but in a good way. There's so many good receivers. If you're pinning hopes on a receiver, like, it's got to be an offensive line unit. It's got to be a defensive line unit. I don't see it on the Giants' defenses. But then again, I mean, they did hold the Rams down. I don't know, man. The New York teams are bad.
I mean, I guess that's one thing too. I've learned, especially as being a WFT fan, I always have to find solace in losses or find the silver lining. So I mean, holding the Rams to 17 points, that would be something as if I was a Giants fan, I would kind of be like, okay, well, I can find solace in the fact that, hey, even though, like you said, on the surface, we only lost by 8, but we really won in the game from the jump. But I can lie to myself and say, hey, we was at least in the game.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I'd have to go back and actually watch the games and see what they're doing. I mean, it's easy to say they're terrible.
Yeah.
Maybe if I went back and watched the All-22, I'd be like, oh, they got some things going, but they're just, I don't know. There's just something missing there. There's an excitement missing there. There's obviously a talent gap. I think, somebody said it. It's hard to tell who said it, but they probably held on to Eli a tad too long. Tried to wring out a couple more years and didn't blow the thing up when they should have, and it's coming back to haunt them a little bit. And I think that's what's going to happen to a lot of these teams. I think the New Orleans Saints, they might have a crash like that when Breeze is done. I think Steelers will have a crash like that and I don't blame teams for holding on and going for it when you got a Hall of Fame quarterback. But then when Eli leaves, you're like, ooh, you know what I mean? Like they just weren't, they just weren't ready for it. But they're not great. But here, you know what though? The New York Giants are one game out of first place.
Right, right. Isn't that something? So, because you think about it,
we're sitting there laughing at them. They're fine.
Just imagine, this would have been crazy. So if the Eagles would have lost, they would have been what, one? They would have been they'd been 0-2-1.
Yeah,
Giants would have been 1-3.
They would have been 0-3-1.
Oh yeah, they'd be 0-3-1.
Yeah.
The Giants would have won. They would have been they would have been a three-way tie at 1-3.
That's what I mean. So
that would have been great. Right.
Man, they can heat up at any minute.
Right. And that's the beauty about the NFC East, where it's like anybody, even at this point, and you know how sometimes because we look at Houston and we're somewhat putting somewhat of a unrealistic expectation on them versus, because we expect them if they were to make a run, they had to at least win about three games in this month, essentially, just to get back into the thick of it, much less just to, the Giants.
I've always said every NFL team needs to get to 6-6, and then you can go from there. If you can get to 6-6, you're out. You can, you have a chance. So but Houston's got some work to do. But they can go. They can easily go 4-2. They had the Chiefs down 24 points last year. It just
it's there.
I don't understand it, man. Football's a crazy, a crazy game.
And then my final overreaction for the week is the Carolina Panthers are legit. I figured I said, well, I'm going to give them a year. But to me, what it really impressed me in that game was their offense. Because I always figured Carolina's going to get you defensively, which they did a great job defensively. But to me, you getting, what was it? Total offense, I think they had 400. What was it? It was 444 total yards of offense last week. I mean, not last week, but yesterday. And you got to think to yourself, the Carolina Panthers, without Cam Newton, without Christian McCaffrey, and they amassed 444 offensive in total offensive yards.
So I brought the stats up for you. You nailed it. 444, but they only gave Arizona 260.
Right.
They only gave up 133 passing yards, 129 rushing yards. And the big thing here is they only gave up 4.8 per play, and they got 6.2 per play. You nailed it. They had more first downs. That was what I'm glad you touched on that, because that's why they were in my winners. It was actually stats wise, it was one of the more dominant games of the weekend. I was impressed, and I watched, and it looked like that too. I was really impressed with that.
And because we looked at Carolina as a team where we look at, especially with a team when we look at Arizona, who we look at as a team that could potentially be a wild card team, almost a team that's slightly above them as far as when we look at from the hierarchy in the NFC. And then, like you said, they dominated them. And you look at in that type of fashion where I looked at this Carolina team, just me personally, where they're going to be like the ultimate game manager, where Teddy might get you maybe 108, almost like what Baker Mayfield did last week, last night.
Too.
And that's what we looked at. And then for him to have 444 yards, and then Mike Davis, we found out Mike Davis is a middle class Christian McCaffrey. He had 26. He had 21 touch. Was it? He had 21 touches, 114 yards. He had 81 on the ground. He had 5 receptions for 20 some yards. I'm like,
And that's what I said. That's where we go back. A lot of that's offensive line. A lot of it's your tight end, your receivers.
Joe Brady.
That's exactly right. So just to compare that when we're talking about the stats, so just to juxtapose that, the team that we've been praising, the Cleveland Browns and Dallas game was Cleveland gave up 508 yards that game, or 566 yards that game. Dallas gave up 508. That's a total different type of game. So like Carolina's game was more dominant. It just wasn't as flashy. I was really impressed.
Exactly.
That's why they made my winner.
Yeah, Mike Davis is a middle class Christian McCaffrey.
Yep. Off-brand McCaffrey. I like it.
Yes, he's
good value McCaffrey.
Yeah. So let's round out this week's Overreaction Monday. Who gets this week's game ball?
I can't believe I'm saying it, and I really did. I almost gave it to Teddy. Teddy Ball game. That's my dude, but I'm like, nah, that's just being emotional. A lot of quarterbacks had good games. Honestly, man, I had to give it to OBJ. That dude had 150 yards and 3 touchdowns, but they all mattered. That's what I care about in football is do your yards matter? Like anybody, like there's a lot of empty yards out there. Like he made big catches. He made some good blocks. He ran off coverage and he, made that huge run to seal the game. I don't love the guy, but if it was anybody else that did it, I'd say it was one of the best games I saw all weekend. So I gave my game ball to OBJ, and I can't believe I'm saying it out loud.
Hey, you giving credit what's credit due. It was
maturity.
So man. You're grown man.
I think it was like 80 rushing and 70 receiving. Some mix like that. It was just awesome. And then the big play to with Landry, the I guess not a flea flicker reverse, Pat, like, I don't know. He just had a great game. He was a huge part of that win that mattered. And that's like you said it earlier, that's the OBJ that he promised us since he went to Cleveland. I give him full credit. He was a huge part of winning that game. So he got my game ball.
Yeah. It's got to go to Tampa Tom.
Oh,
I think, hey, 30 for 46. 369 yards and 5 touchdowns. I mean, that is a impressive game for a 43-year-old quarterback who was playing behind essentially. And that's a great performance and not to overshadow him. But I mean, like we talked about Justin Herbert earlier, 20 for 25. Like, that's amazing. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I look at what
Yeah, no, you're right, Brady. I thought the same thing. I watched the game. It's his offense. He's got control of it. He's putting the ball like he is so good within the 20-yard line, the red zone, of where he places the ball and where he knows his receivers will be, and gives them, he gives his receivers a chance to score. It's so impressive, his ball placement once he gets into the red zone, and that's the difference between him and Jameis Winston. Like if you had to know a reason why they switch quarterbacks, between the 20s, Winston is the man, but just Brady's feel for the red zone, especially with Evans. I mean, Evans looks like the superstar that we were told he was. It was a really impressive game. The pick sixes are going to happen when you're a 43-year-old quarterback. Yeah, you're going to be behind on some of the throws. It's going to happen, but what he does besides that, he's complete control of the offense. They respond to him. His team's always going to have a chance to win. He's been better than I thought he would be. I'm going to tell you that.
Yeah, big time. So what can they find you on social media, Jeff?
Hey man, you can find me on Twitter at jhunt006. You can find me on Facebook at Jeff Needs Sports, Jeff Needs Help. You can find me on our website, Off the Ball Network. Yes. I do my weekly NFL rankings on there, and they're going to be all over the map this week because we had a big weekend. So I'm out there, and if not, you know what, go to Coach's page and you can connect with me through there, man.
Absolutely.
I appreciate everybody that listens and watches, having a great time.
Yes, indeed, and definitely follow the podcast anyway you get social media, Couch Coach Live, Overreaction Monday. We'll have it on YouTube. We have it just about everywhere. And yeah, man, this has been another Overreaction Monday, the first Overreaction Monday for the month of October.
Oh, I love it.
Yes, indeed. And we'll catch you guys next week.